Professor walked into his classroom with the same pride he had carried for 200 years. His 4 arms held datapads, old books, and a cup of warm nectar. His 3 eyes looked at the students sitting in their seats. They were young. They were eager. They knew nothing. And he was here to teach them. The classroom was large and round. Students from 12 different star systems sat in floating chairs. There were students with soft feathers covering their bodies. There were crystalline beings who looked like living glass. There were students, small and green, with 6 eyes each. All of them had come to the famous Galactic University of Xenobiology on planet Velar 7 to learn from the best professors in the galaxy. And Professor believed he was the best of them all. He placed his things on the podium and turned to face his students. His translucent blue skin glowed softly under the classroom lights. He cleared his throat, which made a sound like bubbles popping underwater. "Welcome," he said, "to extinct and mythological species. I am Professor. I have taught this class for 200 years. I have written 47 books. I have studied every legend, every myth, and every false story that foolish species have believed throughout history." A young student named raised her feathered hand. Her large golden eyes blinked with curiosity. "Yes?" asked, already sounding bored. "Professor, what species are we studying today?" Smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who thought he knew everything. "Today," he said slowly, "we study the most ridiculous myth in the entire galaxy. Today we study humans." He pressed a button on his podium. A large holographic image appeared in the center of the room. It showed a terrifying creature. It had 2 arms, 2 legs, and a flat face with small eyes. Its mouth was full of sharp teeth. Its hands ended in claws. It looked like a monster from a nightmare. "This," said, "is how ancient species imagined humans. A species so impossible, so absurd, that only primitive minds could believe they existed." The students looked at the image with wide eyes. Some of them laughed nervously. "According to the legends," continued, walking slowly around the room, "humans came from a planet called Earth. And what a planet it supposedly was. Active volcanoes, earthquakes, massive storms, extreme temperatures, deadly radiation from their own sun, predators in every environment, poison plants, venomous animals." He stopped and looked at his students. "In other words, a death world, a planet where nothing should survive. And yet, the myths tell us humans not only survived there, they became the dominant species." A crystalline student raised a glittering arm. "Professor, how is that possible?" "It is not possible," said firmly. "That is why humans are mythology, not history. No species could evolve on such a planet. The stories are clearly exaggerated tales made up by primitive civilizations." He pressed another button. More images appeared. They showed humans doing impossible things. One image showed a human running after a large animal across a desert. Another showed a human swimming in cold water. Another showed a human holding fire in its hands. "The legends say humans practice something called persistence hunting," said with amusement in his voice. "They would chase an animal for hours, sometimes days, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. While the animal needed to stop and rest, the human would keep walking, keep following, never stopping." Several students made sounds of disbelief. "The legends also say," continued, clearly enjoying himself, "that humans consumed poison for pleasure. Substances called caffeine, alcohol, and capsaicin, chemicals that would kill most species. Humans supposedly drank them every morning and called them breakfast." Wrote quickly in her notes. Her feathers were standing up with interest. "And perhaps the most absurd claim," said, "is that humans formed emotional bonds with predators, large animals with teeth and claws. Humans would bring these dangerous creatures into their homes, sleep beside them, and call them family." The classroom filled with nervous laughter. A student shook his small head. "That cannot be true. No intelligent species would do such a thing." Exactly, agreed. Because humans are not real, they are stories, warnings, myths created to frighten children and entertain adults, nothing more. He turned off the holographic images and returned to his podium. Now, let us examine the historical sources of these myths and understand why ancient species created such impossible tales about. A soft chime interrupted him. Every student's personal device lit up at the same time, frowned. He did not like interruptions. He looked at his own device. A message from the university administration glowed on the screen. Urgent notice, unidentified vessel entering Velar system. Origin, unknown, species, unclassified, all faculty requested to remain calm. Updates will follow. Made a dismissive sound with his throat. Unidentified vessels appeared sometimes. It was probably a lost trader or a malfunctioning probe. Nothing important. As I was saying, he continued, ignoring the message, these myths about humans began approximately 30,000 years ago, when the Empire first started exploring the outer rim of the galaxy. But his students were not listening anymore. They were whispering to each other, checking their devices, looking toward the windows. Stared at the message on her device. Something about it made her feathers stand up straight. She did not know why, but she felt that today was going to be different. Professor kept talking, his voice filling the room with old facts and older opinions. He did not notice the worry on his students' faces. He did not feel the strange energy building in the air. He was certain of only one thing. Whatever was happening outside could not possibly be more important than his lecture. He had never been more wrong in his 200 years of life. The GSV Horizon floated silently in the darkness of space. It was not a large ship, but it was beautiful. Its silver hull reflected the light of distant stars. Inside, 47 humans worked quietly at their stations, preparing for something their species had dreamed about for centuries. First contact with alien life. Captain Park stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. He was 42 years old, with short black hair turning gray at the temples. His face was calm, but his heart was beating fast. He had spent 20 years in the military and 10 more as an explorer. Nothing had prepared him for this moment. "Captain," said Lieutenant from her station. She was younger, maybe 28, with kind eyes and a warm voice. "We are receiving a transmission from the planet. They are inviting us to land." Nodded slowly. "What do we know about them?" "Multiple species, sir. Some kind of federation or alliance. They seem surprised that we exist." She paused, reading more data. "They are directing us to a place called Galactic University of Xenobiology. They want to study us, I think." Ensign laughed from his security station. He was tall and strong, with a friendly face that hid his dangerous training. "They want to study us. That is funny." "Be respectful," Ensign said, but there was a small smile on his face. "We are guests in their space. We will be polite, friendly, and calm. Understood?" "Yes, Captain," both officers replied. The horizon descended through the atmosphere of Velar 7. The planet was beautiful, covered in purple forests and silver oceans. The university appeared on their screens, a massive complex of glass towers and floating platforms. They landed on a designated pad, took a deep breath. "Let us make history," he said. The 3 humans walked down the ship's ramp and stepped onto alien soil for the first time. A group of aliens waited for them, keeping their distance. Noticed that several of them were trembling. A tall alien with 4 arms approached. Its skin was pale and its eyes were wide with fear. It spoke, and the translator in its ear converted the words to Korean, then to English. "Welcome to Velar 7. I am Administrator. We were not expecting. That is, we did not know your species was." "Real," offered gently. The administrator nodded quickly. "Yes, real, we thought you were. Stories, legends, myths." And exchanged glances. That was interesting. "We are very real," said calmly. And we come in peace. We are explorers. We wish to learn about your Federation and share knowledge." Administrator nodded again, faster this time. "Yes, yes, of course, please follow me. We have a place for you to wait while we contact the council." The humans followed the administrator through long hallways. Other aliens pressed themselves against walls as they passed. Some ran away. Some stared with huge eyes, waved at a small group of students. They screamed and ran in the opposite direction. "Maybe do not wave," whispered. "I was being friendly," protested. They walked for several minutes until they reached a large door. Administrator stopped. "This is our xenobiology department. The professor inside is an expert on, well, on species like yours, mythological species. Perhaps he can help with the initial documentation while we wait for the council." Nodded, "That sounds fine." The administrator opened the door and stepped inside, heard a voice speaking loudly, lecturing about something. Then the voice stopped suddenly. The humans walked into the classroom. Every alien in the room froze. Complete silence. Saw dozens of different species staring at him with expressions of pure terror. At the front of the room, a four-armed alien with 3 eyes stood behind a podium, its mouth hanging open. Stepped forward and smiled warmly. "We apologize for interrupting. We were told this was a xenobiology department. We are hopping to learn about the species of your Federation." Nobody moved, nobody spoke. A young alien with feathers slowly raised a trembling hand. Her voice came out as a whisper. Are you really from a death world?" Considered the question. He thought about Earth, the hurricanes, the earthquakes, the volcanoes, the sharks and lions and venomous snakes, the extreme cold of Antarctica and the burning heat of the Sahara, the diseases, the predators, the thousands of ways the planet tried to kill its inhabitants every single day. "I suppose we are," he said simply. The feathered student's eyes grew even wider. She looked at the professor, then back at the humans. "They look exactly like the drawings," she whispered to the student beside her. The professor at the podium had not moved. His 3 eyes were fixed on the humans. His 4 arms hung limply at his sides. His datapad had fallen to the floor. Could see the professor's mind working. He could see 200 years of certainty crumbling in real time. "Professor," said politely, "we did not mean to interrupt your class. Please continue, we can wait." The professor opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Finally, after what felt like a very long time, Professor spoke. His voice was small and broken. "I was just teaching my students that your species does not exist." Tilted her head slightly. "That must be awkward for you." The professor sat down heavily in his chair. His legs could no longer support him. The feathered student looked at the humans with something different from fear in her eyes. It was curiosity, wonder, excitement. She picked up her writing device and began to take notes. This was going to be the most interesting day of her life. The silence in the classroom lasted for nearly 2 minutes. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The only sound was Professor's heavy breathing from his chair. Then slowly something changed. A small student in the back row raised one of his 6 hands. His voice shook badly, but curiosity was stronger than fear. Is it true that you consume poison for pleasure?" Captain looked at. She shrugged slightly and nodded. "If you mean coffee," said, "then yes. I had 3 cups this morning before we landed." Several students gasped. One made a choking sound. "Caffeine is a natural stimulant," explained gently. "It helps us stay alert. Most humans consume it daily. Some consume it many times each day." "But it is toxic," the student cried out. "Our databases say caffeine is a neurotoxin. It attacks the nervous system." "Yes," agreed calmly, "but not enough to kill us. Our bodies can process small amounts of many toxins. We find the effects pleasant." Professor made a small whimpering sound from his chair. Another hand went up. This time it was a crystalline student, her body glittering like diamonds under the classroom lights. The legends say you form bonds with predators, that you live with dangerous animals in your homes. Is this true? His face lit up with a genuine smile. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her personal device. After pressing a few buttons, she held up the screen. "This is," she said warmly. "She is my dog. She has lived with my family for 7 years." The screen showed a large golden retriever lying on a bed, tongue hanging out happily. The classroom erupted in chaos. 3 students fainted immediately. Others jumped from their seats and backed against the walls. The crystalline student made a sound like breaking glass, which was apparently screaming for her species. "It is lying on your sleeping area," one student cried out, "where you are most vulnerable." "Yes," said, confused by the reaction. "She likes to sleep next to me. She is very warm and soft." "Those teeth," another student pointed at the screen. "Those are predator teeth." "Well, yes, dogs evolved from wolves. They are carnivores, but mostly eats dry food and treats. She is very gentle. She has never hurt anyone." The feathered student had not run away. She leaned forward in her seat, her golden eyes fixed on the image. "You trust this creature?" she asked softly. "Completely." Nodded. "With my life. Dogs have been human companions for over 15,000 years. They protect our families. They comfort us when we are sad. They love us unconditionally." She paused. "Most humans consider their dogs to be family members." Wrote something in her notes, her feathers ruffling with fascination. The questions continued. With each answer, the students grew more disturbed, and Professor sank deeper into his chair. "Is it true you can survive the loss of limbs?" Ensign stepped forward. He rolled up his sleeve to reveal a long scar running down his forearm. "I broke this arm when I was 12 years old," he said. "The bone came through the skin. Very painful, but it healed in about 6 weeks. See, works perfectly fine now." He flexed his arm to demonstrate. Several students made sounds of horror. "You regrew the bone?" a student asked in disbelief. "Bones heal naturally," explained. "As long as they are set correctly, they grow back together. Skin heals too. Even some internal organs can regenerate." "That is not possible," someone whispered. "That should not be possible." A brave student raised 2 of his arms. "What about your planet? The legends say Earth has active volcanoes. Many of them. Is this true?" Nodded. "Approximately 1,500 active volcanoes at last count. Some are very dangerous. We build cities near them anyway." "Why would you do that?" "The soil near volcanoes is very good for farming." The student stared at him like he had just admitted to being insane. "Your planet also has earthquakes?" another student asked. "Every day," confirmed. "Thousands of earthquakes happen every day. Most are too small to notice, but sometimes we get large ones that destroy entire cities." "And you rebuild the cities in the same place?" "Usually, yes." Professor finally spoke. His voice was thin and weak. "Hurricanes," he said. "The legends mention massive rotating storms that destroy everything in their path. We call them hurricanes, typhoons, or cyclones depending on where they form," said. "They can be hundreds of kilometers wide. Wind speeds over 300 kilometers per hour. Very destructive." "How do you survive them?" "We track them with satellites and evacuate people before they hit, usually. Sometimes people refuse to leave their homes and stay anyway. They stay during a storm that could kill them." "Some people are very stubborn," said with a slight smile. Stared at the humans for a long moment. Then he asked the question that had been burning in his mind since they walked through his door. "Everything I taught was wrong," he said quietly. "Every legend about your species that I dismissed as impossible, it was all true." Considered this carefully before answering. "I do not know what legends you have," he said, But based on the questions today, I would say yes, most of them are probably true. He paused. Actually, the truth is probably worse than your legends. We have not even discussed wars, diseases, or reality television. Raised her hand again. What is reality television? That, said firmly, is a story for another time. Professor put his head in his hands. His 200 years of expertise meant nothing now. Every book he had written was wrong. Every lecture he had given was false. His career was built on lies he had truly believed. And somehow, impossibly, these terrifying creatures from an impossible planet were standing in his classroom, being polite and friendly and patient, as if they were not the most dangerous beings the galaxy had ever seen. That, perhaps, was the most frightening thing of all. News spread through the university like fire through dry grass. Within an hour, the hallway outside Professor classroom was packed with faculty members, students, and staff, all pushing against each other to catch a glimpse of the impossible creatures inside. The human stood calmly in the center of the room, surrounded by chaos. Professor had not moved from his chair. He stared at the floor, mumbling to himself about everything he thought he knew and everything he had been wrong about. His 4 arms hung limp at his sides. His 3 eyes looked empty and lost. The door burst open and another professor rushed inside. This one was different from. He had 6 legs and a body made of living crystal that reflected light in rainbow colors. His name was, and everyone knew he was Professor's greatest rival. "Remarkable," Professor shouted, pushing through the crowd of students. "Absolutely remarkable, living humans, right here on Velar 7. He stopped in front of Captain and looked him up and down, with crystal eyes that sparkled with excitement. "I am Professor," he announced loudly, making sure everyone could hear. "Head of the Department of Newly Discovered Species. I will be taking over the documentation of these fascinating creatures from this point forward." Professor's head snapped up, his empty eyes suddenly filled with fire. "You will do no such thing," shouted, rising from his chair. "I have studied human mythology for 50 years. I have written books about them. If anyone is qualified to document them, it is me." "You thought they were imaginary," replied coldly. "You taught generations of students that humans were fairy tales. Your expertise is worthless." "My expertise is extensive. I know more about human legends than anyone in this university." "Legends are not science. You are a professor of mythology. I am a professor of discovery. These creatures belong to my department now." The 2 professors glared at each other. The air between them seemed to crackle with tension. Students backed away nervously. Leaned toward and whispered, "Should we do something about this?" Watched the argument with mild amusement. This is actually normal for first contact situations. Different groups always fight over who gets credit for discovery. Let them work it out. "Humans are not creatures," was shouting now. "They are clearly an intelligent species. They should be treated as diplomatic guests, not laboratory subjects." "Finally, something we agree on," said loudly, interrupting the argument. Both professors turned to look at him. "We are here as representatives of Earth. We are not here to be studied like animals in a zoo." Blinked his crystal eyes. Of course, I did not mean any disrespect. I simply meant." "He meant he wants his name on the discovery papers," said bitterly. "And you do not," shot back. While the professors continued arguing, Ensign wandered to the edge of the room. He had been standing still for too long and was getting hungry. He noticed a small food station in the corner, probably for students who needed snacks during long lectures. "Excuse me," he said to a nearby student, "is that food?" The student nodded quickly, too afraid to speak. Walked over and examined the options. Most of it looked strange, but one item caught his attention. Small red cubes that smelled familiar. He picked one up and sniffed it. Capsaicin, it smelled like hot peppers. "Is this spicy?" he asked the room in general. A student answered in a shaky voice. That is paste. It contains a mild irritant that some species find pleasant in very small doses. Please be careful, it can cause pain if you consume too. Put the entire cube in his mouth and chewed. Not bad, he said. A little spicy but not too much, like a medium salsa. Everyone stared at him in horror. He just ate 12 standard doses, someone whispered. He should be screaming in pain, another student said. Picked up another cube and ate it too. These are pretty good. Do you have any water? Meanwhile, had slowly moved closer to Lieutenant. Unlike the other students, she was not backing away from the humans. Her feathers were smooth now, not standing up with fear. Her golden eyes were bright with curiosity. Lieutenant, she said softly, may I ask you some questions? Not about your biology, about your culture, your art, your stories. Turned to her with a warm smile. Of course, and please call me. Repeated. The name felt strange in her beak, but nice. I study xenobiology, but I have always been more interested in how species think than how they function physically. Then we have something in common, said. I am a linguistic specialist. I study how species communicate and express their cultures. The two of them moved to a quiet corner of the room while chaos continued around them. Asked about human music, human poetry, human love. Answered every question patiently, showing images and playing recordings from her personal device. For a few minutes, they forgot about the arguing professors and the frightened students. They forgot about the strangeness of the situation. They were just two people from different worlds, sharing stories. Then the alarm started. Red lights flashed across the ceiling. A loud siren filled the room. Every device in the classroom began buzzing with emergency notifications. Administrator burst through the door, his face pale with terror. Pirates, he shouted. The Razorback Syndicate, 12 ships approaching the planet. Our defense fleet is hours away. Panic spread through the room instantly. Students screamed and ran for the exits. Professors shouted contradicting orders. The peaceful chaos of academic rivalry became the desperate chaos of genuine fear. Captain stood very still. His expression did not change. He simply raised his hand to his communication device and spoke calmly. Horizon, this is Captain Park. Situation report. A voice crackled through the device. 12 hostile vessels approaching, Captain. Light cruiser class. Weapons charging. They have been monitoring communications. They know about us. They think we are easy targets, said quietly. Yes, sir, they are broadcasting threats, standard pirate demands, surrender or be destroyed. Professor grabs arm with all 4 hands. You must flee. Your ship cannot fight 12 vessels. You will be destroyed. Looked at the professor calmly. Then he looked at, still standing close to. Then he looked at the terrified students huddled against the walls. Lieutenant Ensign, he said quietly, stay here, keep our new friends calm. He turned toward the door. Wait, cried, where are you going? Stopped and looked back over his shoulder. His eyes were calm, but something dangerous moved behind them. Professor, he said softly, you have been teaching about humans all day. Did you cover what happens when someone threatens people we have decided to protect? Could not answer. His voice had disappeared. Captain Park walked out of the classroom, his footsteps steady and sure. Behind him, silence fell over the room. Every alien watched him go, wondering what one small ship could possibly do against 12 pirates. They would find out soon enough. The university's observation center filled with terrified faculty and students. Giant screens covered the walls, showing censored data from across the system. Everyone watched as the human ship, the Horizon, rose from the landing platform and flew toward the approaching pirate fleet. 1 ship against 12. Professor pushed his way to the front of the crowd, his 4 arms shoving people aside. He had to see this. He had to witness whatever was about to happen. Beside him stood with Lieutenant and Ensign. The two humans did not seem worried. They watched the screens with calm faces, as if they were watching a sports game instead of what everyone assumed would be a massacre. "They will be destroyed," Professor said from nearby. His crystal body flickered with nervous light. "One ship cannot defeat 12. It is simple mathematics." "Your mathematics might be wrong," Ensign said quietly. On the screen, the horizon accelerated toward the pirate fleet. The ship moved faster than anything the aliens had seen before, cutting through space like a blade through water. The pirate commander's voice crackled over the communication system. He was a razorback, a species known for violence and cruelty. His voice was rough and mocking. "Attention, unknown vessel. Surrender now and we might let your crew live as slaves. Resist and we will tear your ship apart piece by piece. You have 30 seconds to respond." Captain's voice came back clear and steady. "This is Captain Park of the GSV Horizon, representing Earth and the human species. I am giving you one chance to leave this system peacefully. Take it." Laughter filled the communication channel. Multiple pirates were laughing at the small human ship. "One ship threatens 12, the pirate commander howled. "You are either brave or stupid. I think stupid, kill them." The pirate fleet opened fire. What happened next would be talked about for generations. The horizon did not run. The horizon did not hide. The horizon dove straight into the heart of the pirate formation, spinning and rolling to avoid the first wave of weapons fire. And then it started shooting back. The human weapons were different from anything the aliens had seen. Bright beams of focused energy cut through the darkness of space. Each shot was precise. Each shot hit its target. The first pirate ship exploded within 10 seconds of the battle starting. "Impossible," Professor whispered. The second ship tried to turn away. The horizon caught it before it could complete the turn. Another explosion lit up the screens. "They are so fast," breathed, her golden eyes wide with wonder. "How are they so fast?" Lieutenant smiled slightly. "Humans are very good at two things, making friends and making war. We prefer the first option, but when the second option becomes necessary." The third pirate ship died, then the fourth. The pirate commander was screaming orders now. His mocking laughter had been replaced by pure terror. "All ships, all weapons, focus fire on that vessel, kill it, kill it." The remaining 8 ships concentrated their fire on the horizon. Space filled with deadly energy as every pirate weapon fired at once. The horizon danced through the chaos. Somehow, impossibly, the small human ship avoided most of the attacks. It twisted and turned in ways that seemed to break the laws of physics, and it never stopped shooting. 5, 6, 7 pirates down. "The legend spoke of human reflexes," Professor said, his voice shaking. "Quick reactions beyond what other species possess. I thought it was exaggeration." "Humans evolved on a planet where slow creatures died," said simply. "We had to be fast. We had to be aggressive. We had to be willing to fight against terrible odds. It was the only way to survive." 8 pirates down, 9. The remaining 3 ships did something no one expected. They stopped fighting and ran. Their engines flared to maximum power as they fled toward the edge of the system, desperate to escape. The horizon did not chase them. On the communication system, Captain's voice was calm. "Pirate vessels, remember this day. Remember what one human ship did to your fleet. Tell your friends. Tell your leaders. Earth protects its allies. Earth does not forget threats, and Earth does not lose." The observation center was completely silent. Hundreds of aliens stared at the screens, watching the horizon fly slowly back toward the planet. The battle had lasted 11 minutes. 12 enemy ships had become 3 fleeing survivors and 9 expanding clouds of debris. Was the first to react. She began to clap her feathered hands together. It was a gesture she had learned from human media files, a way humans showed appreciation and respect. The sound was soft at first, almost lost in the huge room. Then Professor joined her. His four arms clapped together in an awkward rhythm, but the meaning was clear. More aliens joined in. Soon the entire observation center filled with the sound of clapping hands, clicking claws, and vibrating crystals. Every species showed appreciation in their own way, but they all meant the same thing. Thank you, we are grateful, we are amazed. 30 minutes later, Captain walked back into Professor's classroom. He had a small cut on his forehead where he had bumped it during a sharp maneuver. He seemed annoyed by the injury, nothing more. The room fell silent as he entered. Every alien stared at him with new eyes. This was not just a strange creature from an impossible planet anymore. This was a protector, a warrior, a friend. Professor approached him slowly. The old professor looked different now. The arrogance was gone from his eyes. In its place was something like humility, something like wonder. Slowly, carefully, performed a gesture that everyone recognized. He bent his body forward in a deep bow, the most profound sign of respect in culture. Captain Park said quietly, I have spent 200 years teaching students that your species was mythology. I have written 47 books claiming you did not exist. I have been wrong about everything. He straightened up in Met's eyes. I would like to start over. I would like to learn the truth about humans, if you will teach me. Smiled warmly and extended his hand. Hesitated, then reached out with one of his own hands and grasped it. We would be honored, Professor. Stepped forward, her feathers bright with excitement. Lieutenant, you promised to share human cultural archives with me. I want to learn about your music, your stories, your art. I want to understand how you think. Nodded happily. And I want to learn about your people too. I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Administrator rushed into the room, his face filled with relief and excitement. Captain Park, the Galactic Council is requesting an immediate meeting. They want to discuss formal diplomatic relations with Earth, an alliance. Nodded calmly. Please tell them we are honored and interested. Earth has been alone in the universe for a long time. We are very happy to make new friends. As the administrator hurried away, a young student raised a trembling hand. Everyone turned to look at her. Captain, she asked in a small voice, you spoke of protecting allies. You defended us today even though you just met us. There are more of your people back on your planet, yes. How many more humans are there? Paused, he thought about Earth. The crowded cities, the small villages, the ships exploring the oceans, the stations orbiting the moon. 8 billion people, each one of them shaped by the same death world that had made him. 8 billion, he said simply, last count. The room went very, very quiet. Professor looked down at his lecture notes. 200 years of careful scholarship, 47 books of confident certainty, every word wrong. Slowly, deliberately, he walked to the recycling unit in the corner of the room. He fed his notes into it, page by page, and watched them dissolve into nothing. He would need to start over. But as he looked at the humans standing in his classroom, surrounded by grateful aliens who had been strangers just hours ago, he realized that starting over might not be so bad. The universe had just become far more interesting. And somewhere in the back of the room, smiled to herself and began writing the first page of what would become the most important book in galactic history. She called it simply Humans. It would take her 50 years to complete. And even then, she would only scratch the surface of what humanity truly was.